Dotted with lakes and marshes, it sits between Big River and the Prince Albert National Park. Tyson Johnson grew up in the area. He says for decades it was off limits to loggers, but that's no longer the case. Tyson Johnson's a member of the Nesslin Lake Forest Advocates. He's on the line now to tell us more. Good afternoon, Tyson.
Good afternoon.
Tell us about this section of forest and what makes it special.
Yeah, that's a good question. So this area, like you said, a lot of it has been not officially protected. It was on the block for logging going back as far as 92, I think, was the last we could find like evidence of us. Not myself, I mean, personally, I wasn't very old back then, but working with the government to have it removed from planned logging. Most of the 11,000 hectare area has been logged, but there's a good chunk of it that's old growth forest that's really high value for lumber, but very high value for other uses as well.
Well, so why is it of interest now? Like, what's going on?
Oh, I guess they're just logging in the area is ramping up. They've lost a lot of logging area up north to the caribou, so stuff further south, I guess, even though we're much further north of Saskatoon than but anyway, yeah, so I guess there's a lot of pressure that way. In some of our meetings with them, they've mentioned that that's part of the reason why it's more looked at now, I guess, is because they've lost some land to caribou habitat.
Yeah. Is the fact that it's old growth also an attraction?
It is, yeah. Like I said, that's high value. Some of it is old growth. Like some of the softwood in there is very old growth. Like I said, it could have been logged 30 years ago, and it wasn't. It could have been logged 20 years ago. It was taken off the block. Like it's been successfully protected before. This isn't a new fight by any means. Now we're just trying to look for a solution that's more permanent, so that this doesn't have to happen again, and then we can actually start to develop the area for different types of uses, including alternate logging methods.
Who wins, who loses if logging goes ahead there?
Well, I mean, winners would be like Toco, the logging companies. It's very cheap lumber. Logs get hauled from all across the province to the mill here in our community and the mills in Meadow Lake as well. Long hauls are part of the budget. There's still money to be made, but when it's this close, this is literally as close as you can get to the mill, so that makes it really appealing to them. There's a lot of roads, a lot of infrastructure already in place in the area, but that's because a lot of people live in the area.
Yeah, the province has suggested this would be modified clear cutting, that a percentage of the trees would be left standing. What are your concerns with that approach?
Yeah, so we've reviewed their concessions, as they call them, with leaving some standing, and it's just not substantial. It's still basically a clear cutting plan that leaves 10 meters on either side of a creek and maybe 30 meters on one side of a lake, just a southeastern side of Swede Lake, say, because you can see that from a hill. So it's just more visuals from the road is what they're giving us, or visuals from people that might kayak or canoe on the creek, which does frequently happen, so they're not seeing the clear cutting. But essentially that's the alternative method I believe they're referring to. Would
you be happier with selective logging?
Very much so, yeah, but much more selective, and also alternate methods. OECM, like other effective conservative measures, is a term used to describe alternative logging methods. So there's still logging happening. It's much different approach than what's classical logging in Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
And then
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I guess as well as that, there'd be less logging because the area would be more developed and then utilized more so than it is now for recreation and tourism. There's a lot of work being done on that front with this area right now.
Well, yeah, because, Big River is traditionally a lumber town, but increasingly, as you mentioned, the Nesslin Lake area is seen as a real mecca for, outdoors activities and being in the wilderness without being too far away. How divisive is this discussion in Big River right now?
Not as divisive as I would expect. There's always some old school people, like say, it is a logging community going back. I believe Big River celebrated its centennial a few years before the province of Saskatchewan itself, so it is an old community, and it started out as a logging community. That being said, in 2007, when the mill had been shut down for years and would continue to be shut down for almost a full decade, the community, its population had come back, and the tourism industry exploded in that time. as well as the cottage community, not just tourism, but actual new residences being on subdevelopments. Mm-hmm. And the area in question has about 4 of those new subdevelopments in it, or existing developments that have had a boom as well.
So, Tyson, what's the next step for those of you who don't want to see this forest clear cut?
Well, our next step, we're continuing to work with the government. They've asked us to continue to work with them, although they've pretty much denied us on all of our requests as far as a moratorium or the alternate sort of models that we're looking at. So we're going to continue to work with them, but we also do have sort of legal measures that we're looking at taking, and that's why we started the GoFundMe. That's why we're Alec requested this interview. And to kind of get our message out there, because we have to start crowdsourcing, because it looks like the government, all sort of indicators point to the logging will go ahead at some point. There could be roads being put in as early as this winter. So we need to move fast, and that might require legal action to have like some sort of injunction. And we do think we have a case that we can go that way, so that might be where this fight takes us.
All right. Tyson, let's keep in touch.
Absolutely. I appreciate the time you've given me.
Thank you for this.
Yes, thank you.
Tyson Johnson was born and raised in Big River, a member of the Nesslin Lake Forest Advocates. More than 30,000 people signed a petition to put a freeze on logging in this area west of the Prince Albert National Park. The province says despite that petition, it will not issue a moratorium. CBC asked Carrier Forest Products for its take on the story. Carrier's president says this winter his company will receive a few loads of hardwood trees harvested by another company. Next year, Carrier wants to cut some softwood leading blocks. It calls it a small fraction of the area Johnson is talking about. Carrier also says the proposal is subject to Saskatchewan's public consultation process.